Hi, my name is Carrie Forrestal, and this is my Multiple Intelligences project for English 521. I'm going to be discussing Louise Rosenblatt's text called The Reader, the Text, the Poem, which is about the transactional theory of literary work. In the transactional theory, we talk about the difference between efferent reading and aesthetic reading, or also the stance you take when you approach those readings. I'm going to use a metaphor today to talk about efferent versus aesthetic stance, and my metaphor is going to be baking a cake from a cake mix. In this metaphor, the cake mix represents the text that the author has written. The first step in any reading event is going to be choosing the text. So through reader choice, we already bring our own ideas, our own environment to this choice. Today it's October 1st, and it's fall, and I feel like making pumpkin spice cake. An efferent reading of this cake mix would result in a cake. It tells me that I should get oil, water, eggs, and gives me all the instructions for how to make the cake. Everything here is what the manufacturer intended it to be. But it's not going to become art until I interact with it. An efferent reading is going to result in cake. When I look at the back of this cake mix, some of the efferent ways to read it include a round cake pan, include a standard cake pan. It talks about how you can modify this in order to make it work in higher altitudes. Other more aesthetic interpretations of this cake mix would include a low-fat option. Sometimes instead of using oil, you'll see people use applesauce in order to make it low-fat. The other aesthetic option that I'm going to apply to this is cake pan choice. This is probably the most typical cake pan that people think of when they bake cake, a 9x13 pan. Another one suggested by this is the 8x8 round pan. It's fall, I could use a bundt pan, and if I doubled it, I could make a pumpkin-shaped cake. I have cupcake options, miniature cupcakes, a huge cupcake pan where I could do it all in one. And this cupcake pan reminds me of my grandmother because this, along with one just like it, used to be hers. And when she passed away, this is one of the items that I received. I still bake using these pans often, applying an aesthetic stance to my experience of baking cake. Again today, because it's fall, I'm going to apply an aesthetic stance to my cake baking, and I'm going to make a football cake.
All of the choices a baker makes when making a cake mix can change the aesthetic interpretation of the cake. What kind of oil you use, whether you use tap water or bottled water, the eggs, whether they're farm fresh or purchased from a store, can influence the flavor of the cake when it's finished. Even this mixer will evoke a reaction in me. It was a gift from friends of ours before they moved to Idaho a couple of years ago, and now every time I use it, I think of them.
The end result of the cake mix might have frosting, it might not, it might be a shape, it might not be, it might have fruit filling. However you evoke that cake mix depends on what you personally brought to the cake mix. This is not necessarily the intended result that the creator had in mind, but it's what I had in mind when I took what they created. My baking experience resulted in the evocation of football cakes. The meaning I evoked is unique to me, just like readers do in the ways they evoke their unique experiences from their transactions with the text.